what's up everybody? Welcome back to Spiggs Gaming, and today I'm going to be reacting to the video from Installation 00, John 117, the man behind the armor.
We take a look at the legend himself and get a feel for what makes Master Chief tick. So let's not waste any time and get into this.
I do not remember my name. I do not remember my family. I do not remember my home. But I can remember the game. We played it every day.
I don't remember this.
And I never lost. The game. It's the only thing I can remember about the life I had before I met Dr. Halsey.
Is King of the Hill.
Since then, I have experienced a lifetime of combat. Through 30 years of war against alien aggressors, I have always known my fate. I knew someday I would die in battle. But now that it is here, now that it is time to die, I find I am not ready.
They did such a good job on their graphics.
7'2" and weighing nearly half a metric ton in his Mjolnir-powered assault armor, Spartan 117, commonly known as the Master Chief, is a Spartan 2 super soldier of near mythical status. A hero in nearly every way it is conceivable to be, he is one of the most decorated war veterans in the UNSC and has single-handedly swung the tide of battles in humanity's favor on countless occasions. His mere presence on the battlefield is enough to inspire courage, hope, and affirmative action in even the most morale-starved of Allied forces, and instill fear and inaction into the enemy. After over 30 years of conflict, of which Chief has been the vanguard at the forefront of even the thickest, most blood-steeped conflicts of the War with the Covenant and the events which have followed, he has solidified himself as a symbol for humanity, an icon of the UNSC, and a legend among the Spartans.
That's so
Arguably,
cool.
one of the most instantly recognizable figures of the 26th century, the Master Chief has performed feats that are nothing short of miraculous. Yet despite his reputation, his accomplishments, and his service record, precious little is known about the man within the muscular olive drab plating of Mjolnir. So let's take a closer look at the Master Chief, Petty Officer, Spartan 117, John. Very few details are known about John's early life. He was born on the outer colony of Eridanus II on March 7th, 2511. He was raised by his mother and father, both of whom are now a distant memory, with only the briefest fragments of memory being granted to John in his quietest of moments. He had a small, close-knit group of friends, whom he would spend a great deal of his early life, including building obstacle courses and spending time led in the grass on warm evenings stargazing with Ellie Bloom. At age 6, he attended the Elysium City Primary Education Facility No. 119. While here, his competitiveness and physical attributes served him well in games of King of the Hill, where he dominated, causing injuries including broken bones to other children. At some point in his early childhood, John received free medical vaccinations under a UEG outer colony vaccination program. Unbeknownst to practically everyone, the used needles from the free vaccinations of children were analysed by the Office of Naval Intelligence, looking for specific genetic markers within the populace that would make them viable candidates for an upcoming, highly classified special access project. John's DNA profile would ultimately reveal him to have these specific genetic markers. By August 17th, 2517, John was visited in school by Dr. Catherine Halsey, civilian consultant and scientific advisor for the Office of Naval Intelligence. The brief interaction served to allow Halsey to observe John up close to ensure he would ultimately make the cut. Shortly after this event, an ONI acquisitions team were sent to Eridanus II to acquire John. Upon initially entering his childhood home, John woke up and had to be restrained and his mouth covered while he was sedated. After he fell unconscious, ONI kidnapped John from his bed, placing him in cryostasis, and replaced him with a flash clone that would develop seemingly natural but fatal conditions shortly thereafter, and pass away, thereby facilitating the abduction while also giving the parents some modicum of closure. He and 74 other candidates from across human-controlled space were then delivered to ONI facility Castle Base on planet Reach, where he was conscripted into the Spartan 2 program as per Naval Code 45812.
Hate this.
John's life had just been completely overturned, and yet he stoically accepted this change and followed the path he had just been thrust upon.
The age of 6.
John quickly proved himself to be one of the program's top candidates. Both Dr. Halsey and Chief Mendez identified him as one of 4 emerging leaders within the Spartan 2 group alongside Kurt 051, Jerome 092 and Frederick 104. Halsey believed John held both the skill and natural ability to lead the entire Spartan 2 group. Some of the most formative moments of John's training happened very early on. On day 1 of training, John was teamed up with Sam and Kelly and given the objective of ringing the bell at the apex of a 3-dimensional obstacle course. John came first, but left Sam and Kelly behind. As the objective was team-focused, Sam and Kelly came last, and as such, so did John. When told this, he briefly objected, then understood the consequences of his actions. That night, he, Sam and Kelly were only given stale crackers and water for dinner before bed. On day 2, the trainees were set the same objective, but this time the obstacle course had been changed significantly. John had learned from his previous mistake, assimilated the information, and adjusted his approach. His team came third, and although they didn't win, it highlighted to John the importance of teamwork. 2 years later, John and the Spartans were dropped into Reach's Highlands for a training mission where each member would be dropped in alone, with only a small piece of a map, and their objective was to rendezvous for extraction.
That's right.
With the last trainee being left behind to walk back to camp. John identified key landmarks and ensured this information reached all other trainees before he was dropped off. After a short hike through the woods, John encountered the other trainees. They organised themselves, identified the extraction point from the various map pieces, and made their way for the RV point. When they arrived, the Albatross dropship was guarded by ununiformed military personnel. Being unsure as to whether or not they were threats, John and the other trainees organised to overpower the soldiers and took control of the Albatross with the help of an AI. John was the last aboard, so if anyone had to be left behind, it would be him. His actions garnered a scolding from Chief Mendez. However, Halsey instead opted to promote John to squad leader. For the following 8 years, John was schooled in history, military strategy and tactics, weapons, and was given extreme physical training, all while maintaining his position as squad leader.
Yep.
But his greatest test to date was yet to come. In March of 2525, the Spartans received Project Aster, a plethora of biological augmentations and enhancements. Having already been given a growth hormone in a thyroid implant, the now 14-year-old Spartans were now significantly taller than the average human. They were given occipital capillary reversal to boost their visual acuity and night vision, carbide ceramic ossification making their bones practically unbreakable, muscle enhancement injections boosting their strength and density, fibrification of neural dendrites making their nervous system superconductive and boosting their reaction time 300%, a plethora of gene therapies, and transgenic hybridizations. John was one of the first to awaken after these augmentations, and he awoke to find half of his fellow Spartans had died as a consequence of the augmentations, with a dozen others now injured or crippled so severely they would never become Spartans. John took this news badly. A ceremony was held committing the bodies of the dead to space, and when the 12 washout Spartans began to be moved away, John intervened and prevented the orderlies from taking his team. Mendez stepped in to reassure John that the survivors would be put to work in the UNSC as their minds were still sharp. John breathed a sigh of relief to this news, citing that all the Spartans want to do is serve.
Aww.
Little did John know, the coffins committed to space were empty. The bodies of all those killed in augmentations were actually held in cryogenic storage, with plans to revive and correct these procedures over time.
Wow, I didn't know that.
John's recovery from the augmentations was impressively brief, and he acclimated to his new speed and strength flawlessly. To test how John was adjusting to his augmentations, Oni fabricated a scenario whereby 4 ODSTs would enter into an altercation with John. Once John had clear orders, he let loose. At only 14 years old, John punched a man in the face twice, caving in his skull, and broke several of his ribs with a side hook. He then heel-kicked the man's knee, shattering it completely, and punched him 3 more times, killing him. The 3 others entered the ring to combat John, one wielding an iron bar. John relieved him of it, breaking his wrist and severing his spine in the process. He delivered a single kick to another's pelvis, shattering it completely, and struck the final man in the chest with the iron bar, stopping his heart. In just 5 seconds, John had killed 2 men, severely wounded a third, and permanently paralysed a fourth. This incident served as the origin point for the long-standing resentment of the Spartans by the ODSTs. Nevertheless, John's abilities had been tested, and he had demonstrated his ability to execute on order and neutralise threats as necessary. It was time that the Spartans, led by John, took their next big step towards their destiny.
Ah, that's right.
In November of 2525, John and the other Spartans would receive the icon of the Spartan II super soldier, the most instantly recognisable aspect of their extreme battle capabilities would be objectified in the form of the Mjolnir powered assault armour, a radical redesign from a previous large, bulky exoskeleton design that was streamlined into a compact suit of armour practical for use in the field. The brainchild of Dr. Catherine Halsey, the Mjolnir armour represented the pinnacle of armour technology, capable of taking full advantage of the physical capabilities of a Spartan II. Mjolnir is a sealed system capable of extravehicular activity or operations in toxic atmospheres and vacuum. It is hardened against radiation and electromagnetic pulses and has filters that are completely effective at removing toxins and bacteria from the local atmosphere. The armour's outer shell is composed of a multi-layer alloy of remarkable strength which has been augmented with a refractive coating capable of dispersing a limited amount of Covenant energy weapon impact. Underneath the alloy shell is a thick black armoured titanium nanocomposite bodysuit. Underneath this layer is a gel-filled layer, and the gel layer regulates temperature and can reactively change its density in a few seconds. The inner skin suit is made of a moisture-absorbing synthetic material linked to an environmental control computer and the occupant's special issue Spartan neural interface. This network translates electrochemical signals to digital code and routes them through an interface connection at the rear of the skull. Through this interface, the user's thoughts command the armour's movement systems, and input from the onboard sensors are broadcast directly to the user's mind. Sandwiched between the external armour and the inner padding is the most devastating weapon the suit carries, a layer of polymerized lithium niobosine, a form of reactive metal liquid crystal woven by molecular tools into a super dense layer that is amorphous yet amplifies force, doubling lifting capability and increasing reaction time by a factor of 5. The synthesis of machine and mind is so fast that it is almost impossible to chart the reaction time. Unfortunately, the system is so reactive that normal human beings cannot use the suit without injuring or even killing themselves. Only humans that have undergone the augmentation shared by the Spartans are able to safely operate the suit.
That makes sense.
In a very real sense, just as the Norse warhammer Mjolnir can only be wielded by the gods, so the Mjolnir-powered assault armour was wielded by the godlike Spartan II super soldiers, and with it, John and the other Spartans finally became what they were made to be. And with the Covenant arriving in human-controlled space, it was just in time.
War.
John's first mission against the Covenant was against the Unrelenting, a ship that had arrived in the Chi-Seti system while he and the other Spartans were donning their armour. The mission, while bold and unconventional, was a success. Start an EVA manoeuvre, board the alien vessel, plant a bomb, and extract. Unfortunately, Sam's armour was breached, making his extraction back into the vacuum of space impossible without killing him. Sam opted to stay behind to guard the bomb. The rest of the Spartans extracted, and Sam succeeded in preventing the bomb from being disactivated. Sam gave his life to demonstrate the fury of the Spartans and to prove that the Covenant could be killed. It had a profound effect on John, as he had known Sam since day one of boot camp, but it was an event which motivated his actions for years to come.
Aww.
Over the coming months, John and his Spartans were rapidly deployed on a number of battlefronts, taking part in the Battle of Alpha Corvi II later in 2525, and a boarding action against the frigate Radiant Arrow before being assigned as an instrumental part of Operation Silent Storm in the early 2526, which saw John attain the rank of Master Chief Petty Officer. Over the coming years, John would engage in countless battles and campaigns across all of human-controlled space, both with his Spartans and alone, watching colony after colony fall to the Covenant, gradually watching the numbers of his active Spartans drop as the war continued.
Aww.
Up to 2552, the final year of the war, John's career service vitae recorded 207 ground engagements against the Covenant in which he had participated. It is assumed the term engagements here means battles rather than a specific incident of combat as it is currently defined.
Wow.
In the final year of the war, John was tested to his breaking point. The discovery of the halos and the horrific parasitic lifeforms called the Flood refocused his ongoing goals from ensuring humanity's survival of the war to ensuring the Halo superweapons are never used by the Covenant to wipe out all life in the galaxy, and to ensure the Flood never get loose and infect the galaxy. The war came to its ultimate conclusion on the extragalactic Forerunner megastructure Installation 00, otherwise known as the Ark. With the help of the now separatist elites and their leader, the Arbiter Thel Vadam, the Covenant was broken, the Flood destroyed, and the threat of the Halos neutralized.
Yay!
The remaining survivors returned to Earth, now free of the war, while Chief and his AI Cortana were adrift in space. Chief was declared MIA shortly thereafter, with a ceremony being held as a symbolic gesture to the Chief. Nearly 5 years after going into cryosleep aboard the severely damaged Forward Unto Dawn, Chief was awoken by Cortana as they entered the orbit of Requiem, a Forerunner shield world. After fighting off Covenant splinter factions, the ship was pulled within the shield world. Chief and the Cortana had to find a way back home, with Cortana's condition gradually worsening from her impending rampancy. After accidentally awakening the Didact, an ancient Forerunner warrior, Chief had to assist the UNSC Infinity, flagship of the UNSC, that had responded to the Forward Unto Dawn's distress call and gotten trapped within the shield world as well. Once the Infinity was saved, she immediately departed under the orders of her captain, leaving Chief and Cortana to deal with the Didact alone. At the close of this conflict, Cortana sacrificed herself to save John, and Chief began calling into question his own humanity. Chief would then undertake mission after mission in an attempt to distract himself from his grief. Despite being reunited with Blue Team, Chief was now beginning to resist taking orders and becoming all-out defiant in some regards. When the possibility of Cortana's survival was made evident to Chief, he reassigned Blue Team, effectively going absent without leave. He pursued any and all evidence he could find to locate Cortana, while massive Forerunner machines known as Guardians began emerging from colonies across the galaxy. When he finally confronted Cortana, he found she had moved past her rampancy and was now enforcing an imperial peace across the galaxy. John attempted to reason with her but was ultimately trapped within a cryptum and was only released by the actions of Spartan 4 fireteam Osiris. Chief now understood that Cortana could no longer be reasoned with and had to be stopped. But his greatest challenge to date was still to come, and will not be conclusively explored until the events of the banished conflicts on the surface of Zeta Halo are revealed to us in Infinite.
But we know what happened there, so...
As with all Spartans, John strives to win at any situation, at all costs. Although the drive to win was ingrained to the Spartans as part of their indoctrination, John appears to have possessed such an inclination even prior to his conscription. John is also noted for his exceptional luck, which, along with his combat skills and unyielding persistence, has allowed him to emerge victorious from situations many would consider impossible. Because of his many years of constant combat and military conditioning, John is not as emotional or sensitive as he once was, especially to fear. Although he is not devoid of it, he simply acknowledges the feeling and puts it aside. He is calm in the face of danger, but not foolhardy, as demonstrated during his first encounter with the Gravemind, when warning the Arbiter that his arrogance was likely to get him killed. John is generally stoic, but not devoid of a sense of humour, and often makes dry remarks about the situation in hand. He fully embraced his life as a soldier, acting as a shield and sword for humanity in times of need. He feels no resentment towards Dr. Halsey because of his conscription, instead accepting the life imposed on him as a chance to live up to his full potential, in part because he was little more than a playground bully when he was conscripted. As with every Spartan, John has an entrenched commitment and loyalty to the UNSC and humanity as a whole, but does not hold himself as a superior being and puts the lives of others before his own, putting himself in harm's way for the safety of civilians and fellow soldiers.
Aww.
John is also known to be a man of his word and will strive to keep any promise he makes, even at great personal risk. His unfaltering, determined nature serves to mask his feelings on many occasions, as he prefers to devote all attention to the goal at hand. While often cited as being a relentless, mindless killing machine, John is actually quite intelligent and is noted for his ability to think practically outside of the box, come up with novel solutions to complex problems, and use unconventional means to attain his goals. He realizes that his duty as a Spartan is to serve and help those in need, and can work professionally with anyone he is sent into battle with. Although John has difficulty understanding the undisciplined lifestyle of civilians, he is fiercely protective of their lives and humanity as a whole. As a soldier, John knows when it is appropriate and inappropriate to fight, and has great control over his emotions thanks to a clear state of mind. Due to his augmentations, he reacts much faster than an average human, seeing events in a fraction of the time a normal person would. From an observer's point of view, it's almost clairvoyant, and as a result has an acute and intuitive insight and perception of any situation. John doesn't open up to strangers very easily, and is noted to have an aversion to taking off his helmet in the presence of others unless completely necessary. As with most of the Spartan 2s, he thinks of Dr. Catherine Halsey as nearly a mother-like figure and holds a deep personal respect for his trainer and mentor, Franklin Mendez. Due to the age in which he was conscripted into the UNSC, John has very little memory of his previous life, and as such, his close friends such as Cortana, Dr. Halsey, Mendez, and his fellow Spartans are practically the only family he's ever really had. John formed particularly close friendships with other Spartans he grew up with since his childhood, most notably being Sam and Kelly, his first friends within the group. After the end of the Human Covenant War, John became an icon as a soldier who had played a pivotal role in ending the decades-long war, and in doing so seemingly gave his life. He was lauded as representing the ideal of a human soldier by UNSC propaganda, a view embraced by many among the general population. During his military career, John served as a source of inspiration for others whenever he was on the battlefield. His determination, selflessness, made Tom Lasky, the then young and doubtful cadet, dedicate his life to military service. With the development of the Spartan 4 program, many soldiers enlisted with the Spartans to be like the legendary Master Chief. Because of his reputation and experience, John's de facto authority far surpasses his nominal rank, and UNSC personnel of all levels are known to defer to his experience. In the eyes of the Covenant, John was branded as the demon, and was considered the main nemesis of the entire Covenant, with most of the Covenant fearful of his presence. The Covenant respected him in terms of his strength and how he was able to defeat thousands of Covenant troops effortlessly. In 2590, there was a ceremony at an unspecified location near the areas of fighting during the Battle for Earth. However, his coffin was empty. In 2607, being over 50 years since the end of the Human Covenant War, then known as the Great War, the John 117 monument began construction to commemorate the Spartan service to mankind. It is unclear if John is still alive in this time frame.
Aww.
Master Chief Petty Officer Spartan 117. John. He is a figure of near mythological status. He is one of the most decorated and experienced war veterans of the UNSC, and above all, is a Spartan 2 super soldier, trained from 6 years old in the art of war, augmented to superhuman levels of physicality and given the single most advanced piece of human technology ever constructed. He personifies the ideals of a hero. He is selfless, brave, determined and motivated. Many have said that it was Master Chief's actions and his proclivity to something as esoteric as luck that secured humanity's future, when in reality, fate, destiny and luck have nothing to do with it. It was just a soldier and his drive to perform his duty.
Aww.
He is directly responsible for the survival of humanity. When our extinction as a species at the hands of the implacable Covenant onslaught seemed all but certain, it was he who stood between us and oblivion. It was the Master Chief who fought back thousands of genocidal aliens to secure our future. It was Spartan 117 who selflessly carried the burden of humanity's savior on his shoulders without question or complaint. It was John who showed us the light, who gave us hope, made us believe, and pushed us to become.
Oh my gosh, I really enjoyed taking a deep dive into John 117, and it's like being able to just, like, a lot of that stuff I knew because I read the Fall of Reach book and I watched the movie, but I haven't read or seen the movie in years, so it was really nice to be able to, like, go back and, see, like, the beginning stages of John and, into the UNSC and all that. And there were a lot of things in there that I didn't know, and, but like, it was just so cool because, I started playing Halo when I was 8 years old, and I absolutely loved the Master Chief. The Master Chief was the very first real, quote unquote real video game character that I knew, because all the other games that I played were, Nicktoons Unite, Mario Kart, all this stuff, but it was the Master Chief and Cortana and everybody else who I loved as a kid. And so Master Chief, holds a, I love the Master Chief. He's one of my favorite video game characters of all time. Hearing all of this and hearing, how a lot of people share my same, love for Chief, really nice. And, hearing all of these wonderful things and how, like, just his presence on the battlefield inspires hope and all this, that's pretty cool.